Hey there everyone, so I'm back, and this time I thought I would talk a little bit about how I've been able to keep my sanity. I am on an island south of Korea, about as far south as you can get and still consider yourself in Korea, called Jeju Island. So, I am down in the boondocks. There are two major cities on the island, and I do not live in either one of them. I live in a dormitory attached to my school in Daejeon. So, it's a little bit crazy, it's definitely different, and so it's been a little bit of a struggle. I thought I'd talk about one of my favorite things that has helped me keep some sanity. I eat a lot of pastries. Okay, so I obviously love pastries. I may have a bit of a problem. Everyone says you're going to lose weight when you come to Korea. I don't know if that's going to work out at the rate that I keep eating pastries. So the real thing I actually want to talk to you today is about the number one thing that has helped me keep my sanity while I have been in Korea so far, and I use these in general when I'm just out and about or in my apartment. I use them all the time, actually. Podcasts have become the greatest help for me so far. They've helped me keep my sanity. They're entertaining, they're funny, they're emotional, they're all kinds of things. Especially when you're in an area where a lot of people do not talk to me. I think they're like, Koreans are so friendly, they'll talk to you all the time. If you're living in a rural area or you're in an area with not a lot of people, you probably won't get talked to very much at all. So podcasts are great because they're fast, they're easy, they're on the go, and really it's like a bit of home. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite podcasts, and hopefully you can enjoy some of them as well. So feel free to check a few of these out. So the first podcast I want to tell you about is called The Moth. This is by far my all-time favorite podcast, probably tied with one other. The Moth is a collection of true stories told by the original storytellers at different stages all across the country in America. So they're pretty amazing because there's such a wide variety. You get incredibly passionate stories, you get insanely funny stories, and you get some really just moving, emotional stories, and they just really are connecting. It's fascinating to kind of delve into the lives of other people, especially because we all have stories that we know and love, and so to hear people's stories that are just as great or funny or that can affect us as well, it's pretty amazing. So I would definitely recommend The Moth. It is my all-time favorite. So my second podcast that I want to recommend is tied as my all-time favorite, and it's called Welcome to Night Vale. Now, this one already has a huge following out there. If you're on Tumblr, you have probably seen fan art for this, and you probably know that its fans are completely crazy, and I'm definitely one of them. So, Welcome to Night Vale is sort of a community radio podcast set in a fictional town called Night Vale that takes place in the middle of a desert in the middle of nowhere, and it's completely crazy. It's one of those podcasts, though, you have to at least give it like 4 or 5 episodes in, and then you'll either know, like, this is my style, or it's not. You get to know and develop with these characters and with this town as it goes on. It has a really, really big following. It's crazy popular, and it's just really fun. It's a fun podcast. It's just thoroughly enjoyable, and I think you'll really like it. I just realized I'm doing a lot of things with my hands. I need to stop moving my hands around all the time. The next one I'm going to tell you about is called How Did This Get Made? And this is actually one that a friend of mine very recently recommended, and I have started to blast through these episodes. They are freakishly funny. It's these 3 comedians. We'll call them comedians. And they basically tear apart really, really bad movies, and the premise is exactly what it sounds like. They just wonder, how did this get made? And they rigorously take notes about these movies, and some of them are just perfection. You listen to this podcast, and they call out all the points that you as a movie watcher have probably noticed and drove you crazy as well, and then they shed even more light on them. It's great. So some of my favorites have been, I just listened to The Last Airbender, which was such an awful movie. It was so bad, and I'm a fan of the series, but it was a horrible movie. I am saving Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2 because I know I'm going to need those at some point when I'm having a crap day, so I'm excited. But they just find the worst movies you can think of, tear them apart, and they have celebrities on as guests all the time, and they have live shows as well. It's really, really funny. That one's a hoot. This next podcast absolutely needs no explanation. It's probably the #1 podcast out there, or one of them at least, and it's This American Life. And it's usually a full hour, and it's a collection of true stories, things that are in the news, politics, all kinds of personal stories. It's a variety. There's essays, poetry, fiction, there's just all kinds of stuff kind of rolled into one, and they always have a topic and a theme every single episode, and so you can kind of start with one that sounds like it might be a good theme or topic for you, and I'm pretty sure you'll get hooked insanely fast. It's great. My all-time favorite episode, and the one that I recommend starting with, is called Fiasco, and it has one story in it about a school play where everything that can go wrong does. I was crying, I was laughing so hard. Okay, the next one I'm going to recommend is called Stuff You Should Know, and the title says it all. It's covering stuff you should know, but they cover all kinds of topics, anything you can think of, from how does a typhoon work, to how to repair a bike tire, to how does medieval torture devices work, or how did medieval torture devices work. They cover everything you can absolutely think of, so I would highly, highly recommend. So, enjoy that one. It's good. And plus, you get to learn some more stuff. I feel like I'm smarter afterwards. Speaking of smart podcasts, of course, most people out there have heard of TED Talks, and so the next podcast I'm going to recommend is the TED Radio Hour. It's nice because a TED Talk is exactly that. It's a talk, and some are really amazing, some are okay. But the TED Radio Hour takes highlights out of a lot of those TED Talks and then goes even more in depth. So if there's a TED Talk that you've really liked, they have probably contacted the original talk giver, speech giver, I don't know. English is failing me since moving to this country. And they'll ask them for more details or things about their own personal lives, and then they'll work in true stories. It's kind of like a hybrid of This American Life plus TED Talks woven together. So you get a bit of storytelling, you get a bit of TED Talks, you get a whole lot of knowledge. It's really worth it. The next podcast I'm going to talk about comes with a warning. This one is a bit more on the adult side, so be very, very careful with this one. Unless you're game for it, just go for it. The podcast is called Risk. And Risk is basically like The Moth. It's storytelling, but they are stories that you never thought you would share. So exactly what it sounds like. Some are a little risque, but some are just freakishly funny. Like, it's quite a clever podcast, but you have been warned, some of them are very graphic. They like to go into detail about sex a lot. So skip over those ones if you're uncomfortable, or enjoy them if you are comfortable. Either way, doesn't matter. But I mostly listen for the really, really funny stories. So check out Risk. It's a good time, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It's quite funny. Okay, and the last podcast I'm going to tell you about is actually one of my favorites, and I'm so sad because it's only 10 episodes, but I wish it was much, much longer. The title is Grown-Ups Read Stuff They Wrote as Kids. It's quite a mouthful, but it is a riot. It's exactly like what it sounds like. It is a collection of people telling stories of things they wrote as kids on stage. There's only 10 episodes, they're only 20 minutes apiece, so if you're just looking for a laugh and something really easy, quick, and funny, I would recommend this one. Start with episode 5. The first story in it is about a group of girls that saw the movie The Coven and decided to start their own witch clan, and it is golden. I wish it was longer. I don't know why it's only 10 episodes. I think it was just like a limited run, but someone recommended it recently to me. Flew through all 10. I have a couple on my iPhone just saved, especially episode 5. Go watch episode 5 or listen to episode 5. It's fantastic. It's way, way funny. So, I hope this has helped. I know that for me personally, moving to a very rural area has been definitely an adjustment. It's taken a lot of different mindsets, but podcasts have been one of the things I've gotten through most of the struggles, at least so far. I haven't been gone that long. We'll see how it goes over time. But podcasts are great. I started listening to them in college, and I realized they're not everyone's cup of tea. But just start with a few. And even just ask around. A lot of people, surprisingly, listen to podcasts and you wouldn't even realize it. I was talking with some friends recently and asked, hey, does anyone here listen to podcasts? Turns out they listen to a lot of the same ones I do. And then we were comparing favorite episodes and some of our favorite stories. And podcasts are a really great connector. They're basically stories and knowledge and just a great bundle of things. And so no matter what kind of podcast you're looking for, there's probably something out there for you. So check out podcasts. I think they're quite powerful, and I greatly enjoy them and love them dearly. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye. People that you talk to, don't have many friends, whatever you feel like.